Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tania Bozaninou, and I have here with me Maria Clara Martin, the representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Greece. So, hello. Hello, everybody. And tell me, the cooperation in Europe regarding refugees is very elusive. Why? What are the challenges?
There are several challenges and several contradictions as well in what we see. One of the first ones is to admit that there's a difference sometimes between perception and reality. We are talking about 100 million people who have been forced to leave their homes throughout the world. We're talking about 46.5, more or less, people who are refugees, meaning that they had to cross the borders of the countries to seek a refuge. And there's a very small proportion that has come to Europe. So this idea that Europe is under attack or under invasion is something that is not really backed by the numbers. We're talking about 7.5 million refugees in the European Union, a region that has 750 million people, and about 4.5 million of those are Ukrainians. So it's a very small number. 80% of the world's refugees are in countries which are low or middle income countries. So the perception is one of the main challenges.
So is Fortress Europe utterly useless?
Oh, it's not a question of whether it is useless or not. There are a number of things. I mean, the first one is solidarity. We need solidarity. We need solidarity with the countries that receive the refugees, and we need solidarity within Europe and with Greece as well. Greece is one of the countries that is at the external borders of the European Union. Commissioner Avramopoulos mentioned just before what this need for solidarity, this need for distributing the responsibility and the burden a bit better, and that is one of the challenges we have. But solidarity without the world, because whatever Europe does has an impact everywhere else. So that's one of the main things that we have to think of.
Do you see any paradoxes or contradictions on the way Europe faces the refugee issue?
Well, one of the things is that, refugees are man-made crisis. I mean, it's people, it's conflict, it's human rights violations, it's persecution that create a refugee. And refugees are not the problem. The problem is how you manage the arrival of refugees, how you manage the reception, the asylum procedures, the stay in a country, the integration, that can become a problem if you don't manage them well. And it threatens our values, because then it creates a reaction, it creates negative ideas of what a refugee is, and it threatens the solidity of our values, because we are at risk of losing our solidarity, our empathy, and that is one of the challenges that we're facing at the moment.
Apart from the classic refugees, there's also what we call the climate refugees. Do you think that the definition of refugees will be broadened in the future to include people who are not persecuted or fleeing war, but they need to leave their country because of the climate change?
The way we look at it is what climate change, how climate change impacts the rights of people, and whether the pre-existing conditions can create a refugee flow. I think the definition of refugee is broad enough at the moment, that encompasses conflict, but encompasses serious human rights violations. It encompasses serious situations of a disruption of law and order as well. So it's, I think that we have to look at climate in a way of first mitigation and see how it impacts the rights of people and when it creates persecution.
In the last few years, we have seen the instrumentalization of refugees in many areas, from Turkey up to Northern Europe, to Poland. Are refugees and asylum seekers becoming a weapon in hybrid wars? And what about it as a Europe?
Yeah, I think that there's something that is very important. I mean, instrumentalization, we deplore it. We are extremely concerned. It doesn't happen just in Europe or at Europe's borders. It happens in many areas of the world. And it needs to be stopped. I mean, that is something that it's clear. But we need to be, we cannot forget the instrumentalized. And we need to tackle it in a way that doesn't penalize the people who have suffered already persecution, war, threats to their lives, etc. We cannot penalize the people by trying to stop instrumentalization, because that creates further harms. And it doesn't solve the question, the situations that created the refugees in the first place, and it doesn't help. So what our plea is, we need to do it in a way that is still humane, that still provides protection for the people who need it.
Accepting the refugees and giving them asylum is one thing, but integration has to follow. How do you see, do you consider that there are positive steps towards integration in Greece, for example, and in the rest of Europe, but especially in Greece?
I think we have a good opportunity in Greece. We have a number of conditions at the moment that favors integration of refugees in Greece. First of all, Greece needs manpower. And we have in the refugee force many people that Greece needs or that can be trained to cater for some of the needs that Greece has. Either because we have about 17% of the refugees, and I'm excluding the Ukrainians because the Ukrainians have a higher percentage of higher education, but even with the non-Ukrainian refugees, we have at least 17% of people who've been to university, who have university degrees, that have professions that Greece, it didn't cost Greece to educate them, but Greece can use them. And there are also people who can provide the unskilled labor that Greece needs. We have a structure because there is a deputy minister in the Minister of Migration and Asylum who is dedicated to integration. And we have a national integration strategy. And the Prime Minister himself has spoken about the need to integrate as a priority. So we need a lot of conditions, I mean, we have a lot of conditions in place that it can be done. And when I'm talking about integration as well, we have to try to see it in a different way. Integration is we talk about more people who can contribute to the economy, who can contribute to economic development, more consumer, more producers, more income, more taxes, more people to pay pension funds.
You're relatively new to Greece. Is there what made you an impression, good or bad, since you arrived here?
I think that one of the things that we always talked about Greece was when you look at how Greece reacted in 2015, 2016, and the enormous solidarity that was shown at that time, and that exists still today. Whenever there's a shipwreck, and we have had a lot of shipwrecks lately, the people run to the harbor with food, with clothes, And that is something that it always makes you feel good in Greece, and that strikes you, that there is still, despite everything and despite everything that has happened and despite the negative rhetoric that you find in Greece, and not only in Greece because it's all over Europe as well, and not only in Europe, but that this solidarity still exists and that we need to cherish it and preserve it.
I cannot not ask you about the 92 asylum seekers who were rescued naked, a shocking image, in Evros in northern Greece. Have UNHCR staff met with them, and what have they told you?
Well, actually, allow me to say that we were absolutely shocked by this. This should not be happening at the gates of Europe, anywhere in the 21st century. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. And we are absolutely shocked, and this is why we called for an investigation into this. These are instances that have to be investigated, and those who are responsible for this need to be punished. Now, yes, the team has seen some of them. Not all of them have been transferred to the registration and identification center. We have so far provided information. I mean, these are people who have gone through a very difficult situation, as you can imagine. So you cannot immediately go and say, what happened to you? So we are, at the moment, we've tried to inquire about their immediate needs. We've informed them about the asylum procedures, as is our procedure under the Greek law as well. So this is what we have seen at the moment. But I have to tell you, we are absolutely shocked about this.
You ever seen anything like it during your career with UNHCR?
I've seen many things, but this is a very awful one.
Maria Clara Martin, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you very much.